Hey, it's Labor Day. 2025 has been interminable for many, many reasons. But also, it's already September? Well, time never stops marching, and neither do commercials. And as we always do, we've got one of those off the top of one of our shows. And the product in question is Sparkplug Coffee. Canadians and Americans can enjoy premium quality beans, which will produce the best coffee you've ever made. And I mentioned we non-Mexican North Americans, right? Well, shipments will arrive to us within a week, and the deliveries won't cost Canadians like Bev and me anything at all. Because you're brewing with the best, it's cheaper and deliciouser than takeout. And my computer points out that's not a word, but I like deliciouser. I'm using it anyway. And you can get orders when you actually need them by joining the Autopilot Coffee Club. Cancel if it isn't working for you anymore, but you also have the option to just pause for a while if need be. Get your beans only when you're ready for more. The website is sparkplug.coffee/HYES. Our promo code is in fact HYES. Using that will land you a one-time 20% discount. Find your new favorite, amigos. Well, coffee has been promoted. Now let's promote some unappreciated movies made by some pretty huge names in the acting business. Bev, cue the music man.
And action! Have you ever seen?
Presents our Best of the Splats listicle. Welcome to episode number 683 of Have You Ever Seen? We usually review a classic movie every week and spoil the plot thoroughly. That'll happen today in a way, but we're going to be talking about more than a dozen flicks in total. Some will be very old, some might be somewhat new though, although maybe none of them are quote-unquote classics. I guess they're not, considering the context here. Who is this speaking to you now? Well, I'm Ryan Ellis, and here's my wife Bev.
That's me.
So the plan today is to talk about 14 movies, 7 apiece, that even though they were made by some of the greatest living actors, gotta be living, they took because it'd be too easy, Brando and Hepburn and Tracy and all those people. They took a critical drubbing on Rotten Tomatoes. Anything less than 60% qualifies as a splat in that website, which is pretty tough. 55 isn't that bad a review, but that's a splat. And all of these movies failed to get to 60% fresh reviews. I was inspired to do an episode like this after the Coming Attractions opinion question for Mr. and Mrs. Smith back in August, which was about what we thought was Angelina Jolie's finest film that Rotten Tomatoes said wasn't good. There were plenty to choose from because she has a lot of splats. You picked Girl Interrupted, and I picked Pushing Tin, which, by the way, I saw a few days ago.
And?
I wouldn't go with it anymore. I didn't laugh that much. I love the cast. Blanchett was still pretty new on the scene, and so was Angelina. That was the year she won her Oscar for Girl Interrupted. Billy Bob had already won the Oscar, and Cusack was the biggest name of all of them. I like all those people, but I didn't love the plot that much, and I didn't really laugh, so I think I'd have to go with your choice if I did it all over again. Girl Interrupted.
Pushing Tin does ask you to believe that air traffic controllers are some kind of rock stars or something. It's a bit of a press.
Jake Weber, too, is in that. He's the hero, if you want to call him that, in Dawn of the Dead. Sarah Pauli's love interest in that movie. And I didn't recognize him for a while. I knew he was in, oh, that's him. He's, for a while, not second lead, but he's got a lot of screen time. Till Billy Bob comes along. Okay, as for our show today, we stuck with American, mostly headlining movie stars that anyone listening to this will know. Also, I say they're American or even Canadian in at least one case, but we also included names like Kidman, Day-Lewis, Winslet, and Hopkins, who, yeah, they weren't born in America, but have made their name and their fame working over here. We also made the decision not to include people like Jack Nicholson, my favorite actor, and Bruce Willis, because even though they're both still alive, they've retired. Bruce has dementia, while Jack hasn't made a movie in 15 years. 15 years. So we put 50 names in a hat. It wasn't really a hat, actually. They were bowls, but anyway, I don't have that many hats. And each pulled out 7 of them, because it was 6 different categories. We were allowed 2 putbacks in case the actor or actress was someone we just didn't feel like discussing. So if you pulled Sean Penn, back he went. I don't think he did, though, did you?
No, but yeah, he would have been an easy return.
I think I had to put him back, though, because he's not one of my guys today. I think I did pull Sean Penn. I forget now. And then we had the option to do a putback if the actor in question, when you looked at all their splats, didn't have a movie you wanted to talk about. You either hadn't seen the movies or you didn't really know what to say about them enough. And I had that. I think a few examples that I had to do that with. Some good actors, but I don't really want to talk about the movies that are their splats. 35 of the 50 are Oscar winners. Some even won twice. 3 more won honorary awards. Nearly half of the 50 were women, and 8 or 9, I think it's 9, maybe it's 8, were black actors and actresses. And full disclosure, we separated the women and also the black actors and had a few rounds with each of those. We started with the black actors and came back around for the 7th time because it was 6 categories to make sure the randomness of having all 50 in one hat wouldn't result in mostly white guys doing all this and maybe older white guys, De Niro and Pacino and the obvious ones. So you're going to get at least 6 out of 14 that'll be black people and or women. And some of the names in the hat were Bale, Bassett, Blanchett, Cruise, Day-Lewis, De Niro, DiCaprio, Fonda, Foster, Foxx, Freeman, Pacino, Pfeiffer, Sarandon, Streep, and Washington. Those are some of the names. And our order today will go, at least mine, did you change it? You're going to do it this way?
Yeah, I'm going to do this.
So the movie you like the least to the movie you like the most of your 7 people. So, as is tradition in episodes where we do listicles, Bev will go first, then I'll do one, then she'll do another, then I will, and so on until we get to my number 1. Or not number 1 in this case, just my last person, my 7th person. So who's your first actor or actress, and what movie of theirs that critics said sucked is something you would recommend?
Hey, wasn't there a trivia question?
Oh yeah, that's right. It was more for the audiences though. What is the movie you'd pick? My example was the Ice Cube movie, which couldn't be here because he wasn't in the hat. What's it called? War of the Worlds. Maybe you liked it and everyone else thought it was terrible. It wasn't really a question of the typical type. It's more for just the audiences to think about for that. So not really a trivia question.
Oh, well, I came up with one.
Well, go ahead then.
I can't say what's my favorite movie that's a splat because I'm not going to look up every single movie that got a splat. I decided to defend just on my own, outside of the actors that we chose, Die Hard with a Vengeance.
That's a splat.
That's a splat!
Oh, I like that movie.
And after the first Die Hard, it's the best one. It's like the second
I like
best.
Die Hard 2 a lot, but it's at least the third best.
No, third one is better than the second one, in my opinion. And maybe it's the one that takes the first big step into that increasing absurdity that the franchise gave into, because it has to raise the stakes with every film, sure, but it's so fun and watchable. Sam Jackson and Bruce Willis have killer chemistry, and Jeremy Irons is
Great
the
villain.
only foil to ever hold a candle to Alan Rickman, playing his brother.
Yeah, he's a great villain in that movie. I like that movie tons. I've seen it many times. Maybe I'll watch it soon.
It's a great one.
That's a splat.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
There's a few splats that you're like, really?
I'll do something like this at the end of the show. I've got it in order, so I'll get to that later. It's not a trivia question like that, but it does involve Bruce Willis. Anyway, your first choice.
The movie I like the least of the ones that I chose, starting with Denzel Washington. I will say, how you said we could put some back. I remember when I was picking from, I think it was the Black Actors category, and I was like, come on, Viola Davis. And I did pick Viola Davis. All of her splats are movies I've never seen.
Oh, okay.
So I went back for more. I got Denzel Washington, and there was some good choices. His Tony Scott stuff. He's got some weak ones. But my favorite is an old one from the 90s that I think probably a lot of people, if they ever heard of it, may have forgotten about it. And that's a movie called Fallen.
Oh, yeah.
Which is this demon serial killer movie about a spirit that can travel from person to person and sings the same Rolling Stones song, which happens to be a song that I love. No, Time Is on My Side.
Oh, that's at the end when
yeah.
they play Sympathy for the Devil.
Did they do that at the end of
I
Fallen?
believe it's at the end of the movie,
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I believe you. You have such
And
a
credits.
great memory. It was one of those movies that would always be playing on TV, so I probably saw it 100 times on TV. John Goodman's in it. He's also great. And I just think for that 90s variety, there was definitely a thing for a while of these supernatural thrillers, and it fit very well into that category. I thought it was a good movie, and I was alarmed when I got older to discover that people didn't like it, that it was not well reviewed. But of the list, I'd say it's the hardest to defend. It's been a very long time since I've seen it as well. So my first movie is Fallen.
Okay, a couple of things here. So you didn't look at the numbers or didn't write them down, but I'll look up as we go for yours. I have them in my notes for mine. But 42% is the rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is
weak.
Pretty bad. The director was Gregory Hoblit, and you mentioned John Goodman. Of course, he's also in Flight with Denzel. And somebody posted on Twitter a day or
Also
two ago.
with that song, whoo, whoo, Sympathy for the Devil.
Okay.
Every time John Goodman appears on screen in that movie, Sympathy for the Devil plays.
And they're a good team in that, too. Yeah, they worked well together. Flight's a good movie. We just saw that again a few months ago. Okay, my first choice is also a black actor, but it didn't have to be. It went with my least favorite of these 7 movies, but it is Will Smith. Will is nearly 20 splats, which is plenty, but it's considerably fewer than a lot of the other people I'll be talking about today. Now, I was a bit surprised to see that things like 7 Pounds and Suicide Squad were only at 26% each. I like 7 Pounds a lot more than most people did. I think that's a pretty bad number. So a lot of people hated that movie, obviously. And I at least love the casting and the performances of Margot Robbie and Will Smith in Suicide Squad. 26%, they're not great movies, but that's just not fair. But the best of the slappers, splats, wham, slap, for me, is definitely Peter Landesman, or Landsman, I don't know how you say his name, his movie Concussion. It is at 58%, so if a few critics happen to go back and say nice things about it, it could still end up being a fresh tomato after all, but currently it's not. And I don't get why more people didn't say better things about it. I think The Fresh Prince does a believable job playing a real person, which isn't always his strong suit. Muhammad Ali, he's very good in it, also comes across like Will Smith playing Muhammad Ali sometimes. But he plays Dr. Bennett Amalu. He sinks in the role pretty well for once, and he isn't just playing Will Smith. Alec Baldwin and Albert Brooks as fellow doctors are good too. David Morse and some of the other guys, including Mr. Echo from Lost, do a heartbreaking job playing former football players who were driven insane by their CTE. Morse especially goes to some very dark places. And while I don't think the NFL did nearly enough to try to help these guys after playing a sport destroyed their brains, at least Amalu made us all aware of the cause. Of course, it is based on a real person, but I didn't say that already. It used to be a guy just got his bell rung. He might stagger around or even go to the wrong sideline, and we all say, oh, his brain's a little scrambled, he'll be fine. But now, reasonable people don't slough that off anymore. There are protocols in place, and Amalu is part of the reason why at least that much happened. It's a far better movie than Rotten Tomatoes would suggest.
Why do you think that Rotten Tomatoes, well, the critics, why do you think...
I don't have an answer for that.
Oh, really?
Some of these I might have an answer for, but that one I don't know why they thought it was not even worth... It's not a plan, they don't give it a fresh tomato, but enough of them didn't like it, so I'm saying. All right, then you're number 2.
My number 2 is from Reese Witherspoon. She had a few good choices. I think audiences would probably disagree with the critics, especially on some of her rom-coms like Sweet Home Alabama. I went with one of her very early films, which was Cruel Intentions, one of the movies that made her a star, along with Pleasantville.
Which I just watched the night before we
recorded this. That's right, yeah. So, Cruel Intentions, admittedly, is very campy. I'm sure that's why critics didn't like it. It's a movie that is made for young people, for teenagers. It's not very ashamed about that, and I'm sure it deserves some of that criticism for that. But even though it was always trying to appeal to younger audiences, it just sinks its teeth right into that material with relish. And it's one of the last great horny films. This is a lost art, is a movie that's just trying to be sexy, and it accomplishes that. Some performances are stronger than others. I think Sarah Michelle Gellar in particular is fantastic. She's playing the bad girl, and she is owning it so much, just turns it all up to 11, which is exactly what the movie needs.
It's a remake of Dangerous Liaisons, and Reese is the Michelle Pfeiffer character, right?
Yes. Ryan Philippe, which I think is how they met.
Philippe, whatever his name is, yeah.
So, him. He plays the Valmont character.
Right.
I think his name is even Valmont in this movie. This movie was part of this trend in the 90s, which was teenage movies based on great literature. 10 Things I Hate About You, Clueless. I really do think it just deserves a fresh tomato just for Sarah Michelle Gellar eating up every scene she's in and for just owning its camp.
And having seen Pleasantville just last night, I renew my love of Reese Witherspoon in the 90s especially. She was so great so often.
And I just rewatched Wild, and I will go to bat for her performance in that movie.
Okay, yeah. So the Rotten Tomatoes number is 54%, and the director was Roger Kumble. All right, my number 2. The guy in the 6 best of my 7 movies is one of the greatest movie stars of all time, and we've reviewed a lot of his stuff before now. And he's Harrison Ford, who was in the group of classic or older actors we had there. Harry's splats are around 20 in total. It's not awful for a guy who's been around since the mid-60s. Like Concussion, Will Smith's movie, the Ford movie I'm going to highlight is nearly a fresh tomato. It's at 59%. And that's Catherine Bigelow's K-19, The Widowmaker. And while I haven't seen it in a long time and I don't remember the details all that well, my records say I gave the film 3 stars when I saw it on the big screen 23 years ago. And I remember it being an intense experience and well made, which tracks because Catherine Bigelow was behind the camera. She knows how to wring us in knots. Okay, Harrison Ford's Russian accent isn't Streep-esque, but I think he does all right as the ship's captain. Probably believable. I don't remember all that well, to be honest with you. Liam Neeson I know is good as the XO as well. And it's powerful stuff in the last act when many Russian sailors risk radiation poisoning to prevent a huge disaster on that nuclear sub. But the movie just wasn't a financial success at all. Plus, we already know that it wasn't beloved by critics, or I wouldn't be talking about it now. And I don't think Ford tried accents again too often after that. Maybe that was for the best. But I think the movie is better than critics and audiences said it was back in 2002.
All right, next I'm going to talk about the great actor Bill Murray, who has a long, storied career. And I really had a hard time deciding between 2 true injustices. And the first one was Life Aquatic, a Wes Anderson
Right,
film.
that's a splat.
It's a splat.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Big fan.
But I decided to go with Kingpin, because Kingpin is also a splat. The Life Aquatic, admittedly, a film that reaches and it kind of fails.
I don't
There's
agree.
a lot.
I like it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I think there's a lot of great stuff in it, but I consider it a lesser Anderson that never really gets all the way there for me. I don't know if it manages its tone properly, and I think it's one of his few missteps. Kingpin, though it may be vulgar and stupid, it knows exactly what it is. It hits every target right in the bullseye. I think that if Kingpin had been a later Farrelly Brothers film, I think critics would have liked it much better just because they would have known exactly what they were about to see when they walked in the theater. But to go into this movie perhaps expecting a lighthearted comedy, maybe some of the more extreme stuff turned them off, but if you knew what you were getting into, you would enjoy it more. I also chose it because it is truly one of the great Bill Murray performances. He is so fantastic when he's playing a heel, always.
Haven't I told you to call me Ernie or Big Ern?
And he doesn't have that much screen time, but they don't waste a frame of it. He is iconic.
And then Woody Harrelson, Randy Quaid, one of the best things he's done. And even, what's her name again? Vanessa Angel, I believe. The beauty that's with him. She's not a terrible actress. And Chris and I covered that for the old sports movie podcast, Scoring at the Movies. One of our first ones. I think maybe the first 6, 8, 10 movies we ever covered. I liked it a lot. I think he liked it too. But yeah, we agreed Dumb and Dumber and Something About Mary are probably funnier. Certainly Dumb and Dumber is. But I like Kingpin. I always did.
I think it's great. Which would you pick between those two? You would pick Life Aquatic over Kingpin?
Oh, to watch again? Maybe Kingpin.
No. If you were doing... If
Life
you
Aquatic.
picked, you would say Life Aquatic.
I'd stump for that one.
Yeah.
Because I think it deserves to be stumped for him. I think it's a very good movie.
I think it's in many ways a better movie than Kingpin just because Wes Anderson is just such an artful and thoughtful filmmaker. And the good stuff in Life Aquatic is better than the best stuff in Kingpin.
I think it was the first time Defoe worked with him and Blanchett and some of the other people that became his regulars. I like them all in that movie. And of course, Murray. I think the movie's emotional when it needs to be. I'm a huge fan. Okay, my number 3 man who wears makeup for a living is the one I pulled from the somewhat modern actors pile, and he's Nicolas Cage. I say he's somewhat modern because although Nicky's been around for 40 plus years or so in our lives, guys like Harrison Ford have been around far longer. He was in the classic actors
And
pile.
we're back to an Oscar winner.
True, for Leaving Las Vegas. Not surprisingly, the man who just likes being in movies, Gary, has a lot of splats. Remember that reference?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
The agent thing?
That's an old classic YouTube clip.
Yes. His splats, something like 55 of them. I stopped counting. But while I thought about stumping for the sci-fi movie Knowing, with its mere 35%, which I remember being a pretty intense and memorable movie, flawed though it was, I'm going with The Family Man. Brett Ratner's dramedy is only at 54%, but it's worth seeing. The glimpse of a life that Nick's character could have had is touching and often pretty fascinating. And even like the way they did the ending after Don Cheadle's glimpse is over. Cage and Téa Leoni are good together, and Cage proved, as he often has, not just in this movie, but in this case, that he can do good work even when he's just playing a normal guy, not a raving lunatic. He doesn't have to go wild to be memorable. I'm actually thinking of reviewing The Family Man later this year during the Christmas season because it is a Christmas movie and it's 25 years old. So we like the 5s and the 0s around here. But even if I don't do a full review of it, or if we don't do a full review of it, I'd be fine with just spending a few hours watching it in December.
Well, I'll join you because I have never seen it.
Saw it in the theater with my mom and my sister, I believe, in early 2001 because it came out in 2000. All right, your number 4 is...
We're sticking with Oscar winners, and we got Jamie Foxx.
Oh, you know what? Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting you so I can find the Kingpin numbers. Of course, Fairley's directed it, and the 50%, which isn't dreadful, but pretty bad. Okay, go ahead. Jamie Foxx, number 4.
I picked Miami Vice.
Okay.
You're telling me Miami Vice is a splat? So I think that movie is so damn cool. I'm not really a Michael Mann fan, and I was never into the series, so I admittedly had very low expectations when I went to see it. But I remember loving it and coming back to watch it a few more times. It's probably fair to say it's a little more style than substance. It's a surprisingly arty action film, especially for an action film based on corny, campy,
Cheesy,
80s,
at least, yeah.
cheesy 80s show.
Great outfits, though, and cool music.
Yeah, it was cool at the time.
And cool actors.
But you don't go back and watch that movie and you're like, oh yes, he lives on a houseboat and has an alligator named Elvis. You don't think of that as like a super cool show. I guess it was cool, but not cool the way that Miami Vice, the movie, is cool. They should have just given it a different name or renamed the characters, but I guess they were trying to capitalize on the name to get viewers and seats. I don't know if it worked or not.
Nostalgia, of course. This entire last 25 years has been about nostalgia for a lot of studio executives.
But it seems to just actually reject the aesthetic and tone of the series. It's not really capitalizing on nostalgia because if you like the series, Miami Vice, I don't know what you would expect coming into the movie, and maybe this is the Kingpin thing, where if audiences were primed to know what to expect from this movie rather than expecting something that would be like the show, then maybe they would have liked it more. Maybe that's why critics had a hard time with it.
47% is what the Rotten Tomatoes critics give it. And, of course, Michael Mann did direct it. Colin Farrell, Jamie Foxx. When it came time to pull a slip of paper with a classic actress on it, I actually had to use 2 putbacks because I couldn't find a splat with either of the first 2 that I could make a good case for. But then I eventually drew Sigourney Weaver, and I had an immediate hunch there'd be something good to talk about that wasn't liked by critics, And of Weaver's approximately 20 splats, there were two that stand out the most, Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. Now, Resurrection was more well-liked than Cubed. It's in the 50s percentage-wise on Rotten Tomatoes, while Part 3 is only at 44%. But I'm here to give some backslaps to David Fincher's debut, Alien 3. I just don't get why it takes so much heat. Yeah, it's a shame they killed off Hicks and Newt, but you have to give credit to the studio and to David Fincher making his first movie. He was a music video guy before that, Madonna music videos especially, for not just rehashing the first two Aliens. They tried something different, and then they paid the price. Nobody likes it, apparently, even after all these years. It's not like one of those movies that, oh my god, I like it now. Ripley is always with a new batch of alien fodder in each of her 4 films, and this group is certainly unique at least. They're not truck drivers in space like the first one, or Marines in space like the second one. They're just violent prisoners stuck in some hellhole outpost who get victimized when Ellen and her alien a-hole happen to end up on their planet. Weaver looks like a badass with a shaved head, but she also effectively plays the hopelessness of this situation, having lost Newt and Hicks and even Bishop. She was alone at the start of the second movie, then it happens again in this one, and she thinks things are really hopeless when she finds out she's got an alien inside of her, so why does she... Maybe that's what people's problem was, is that it's so hopeless, well, she just wants to give up, and look at the great ending. I think it's a fantastic ending, and a brilliant metaphor for my body, my choice, when she does what she does at the end. Alien 3 is far from perfect, but I think there are enough good things in it that it shouldn't have such a crappy rating. And even if Sigourney wasn't Oscar-worthy like she was in the second movie, because she got nominated for that, she gets to play some interesting shades in one of the most memorable heroes/survivors in the history of horror or science fiction.
Good choice.
All right, then.
You made a quite case there.
Well, thank you. You're number 5. Number 5.
Okay, this actually isn't one of my favorite movies, but it's such a classic, and I was shocked to discover that it was a splat. So first I pulled Christian Bale, but I couldn't do it. I don't think I'd seen a single splat on his list. Huh? And then I picked Tom Cruise, and my God, there's a difference. He has quite a few splats that are movies that I would defend, starting with Vanilla Sky. Not a perfect movie, but not a splat in my opinion.
We covered it. We liked it.
That's right, yeah. Far and Away, have a soft spot for that one. That was a big Sunday afternoon TV movie for sure, but I was always really charmed by it. This one's bad, but Cocktail. It has like 20% or something.
My sister and I saw that movie so many times as a kid.
Me too. When you're young, it's the combination of the soundtrack and then just the 1,000-watt Tom Cruise smile. It's not like even then or now I give a damn about bartending flair.
Yeah, but Shu and Brian Brown are good too.
Yeah, I just remember really loving that movie, but apparently I was wrong. But you might be able to guess what the movie is that I picked. Did you know that Top Gun is a splat?
Oh, man.
Top Gun.
I didn't.
I'm not even a big Top Gun fan, but it is wild that a classic like this has a splat.
Just barely, by the way, 59%.
Yes. You don't have to defend it as some form of high cinema, but it does make a case for the enduring value of just a fun, dumb action movie. But it's not just that it's a fun, dumb action movie that knows what it's doing and does it very well. It's not an accident that this has an amazing legacy, a legacy that helped the sequel make $1 jillion a couple of summers ago. And sure, it's shallow. It's basically propaganda. It's shot like a commercial, like, a lot of Tony Scott movies. But it just makes so many people happy. Another movie with an excellent soundtrack.
Great soundtrack, yeah. I'm a fan of these people in this movie. I care about him and about Goose, and I forget Goose's wife's name, Meg Ryan's character. Anyway, her character, and Iceman and Slider and those people. I've seen Top Gun a lot of times. I'm not that shocked it's a splat, but it shouldn't be. My number 5 draw was a modern actor, and he's Bradley Cooper. It might seem like he's been in our lives a lot longer, but it hasn't been even 25 years yet. I counted 17 splats for Brad, but the one I disagree with the most, and I know we've made this point before in this podcast, is Todd Phillips's The Hangover Part 2. Its RT percentage is only 34, which, as bad as that is at least better than Part 3, and it's 21%. Now, is Part 2 mostly just a rehash of the first movie? Yeah, even though the guys are in an entirely different country, and Doug isn't kidnapped like he was in the first movie. That's different, at least. But we laughed. We saw it on the big screen with a good-sized crowd, and we were among the many people who did plenty of LOLing. Of course, we've seen Part 2 at home since, I think in the last maybe a couple of years. And we still laughed, even without a crowd helping us, surrounding us, making us want to laugh. Look, the flick is worth at least a mild fresh rating, I think. And as for Cooper, he'd been acting for years before the first Hangover in 2009 that helped make him a star, but that film becoming a blockbuster was a big reason he became the player in Hollywood that he is today. Coop's very talented, very committed. I say he made the best version of A Star is Born. It's better than the 37 one, Better than Streisand's, even better than the overrated Judy Garland one, which I covered last year.
You know, I love A Star is Born, the Cooper version of it.
By the way, Cruise was your somewhat modern actor, right? Because he started in the early 80s. I think he must have been.
I guess so.
He and Cage.
You determined.
I didn't know to put people like Cruise and Cage, I think Downey as well, because they started so long ago. It's been most of our lives, but they're not as old as Harrison Ford and Denzel. Denzel is probably around the same time as them, actually. But then he was in a different category because he was a black guy. Is a black guy. Anyway, you're number 6. I'm rambling.
Okay.
As I do.
So I picked Meryl Streep. Another great one, like lots of
You
movies
get the bigger stars than I did, I think.
Yeah. So I would go to bat and defend a few of these, starting with The Laundromat, which is a movie that's far from perfect, but really has stuck with me over the years. I think about it quite a bit. I think it's maybe a bit of a failed experiment, but a really smart movie. Also, I was shocked to see that Mamma Mia is a splat. Okay. Mamma Mia. But I am going to defend Death Becomes Her. What the hell? Zemeckis' I guess, somewhat forgotten bridge between the Back to the Future trilogy and Forrest Gump. It has a cult following now, but I guess it was a little too dark for critics who may have been expecting another Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This is a terrific film. I haven't seen it in a few years, but our copy of it when I was a kid was very well worn back in the day.
That and She-Devil?
You know, that was also a splat on Meryl Streep's page. And I'm not defending that. I knew it was bad. God, I watched the hell out of that dumb movie when I was a kid. But I will defend Death Becomes Her. So the 3 leads are amazing. And Isabella Rossellini, for that matter, also really good.
Goldie Hawn, Bruce Willis, and Meryl.
Yeah. And they're all really committed to the high camp of it all. And I just think it's a really funny and entertaining movie that I think picked up the Oscar for special effects.
Yeah, Zemeckis' movies have won, I think, 3 times at least. Forrest Gump, that, and Roger Rabbit. And of course, he's mostly known for visual effects. Maybe he's won more than 3 times. But Gump, Death Becomes Her, Roger Rabbit, all in the span of 6 years as well. I'm not the hugest fan. I saw it again not that long ago. Never loved it as much as apparently you do, so I can't help you with that one. All right, then, Julianne Moore is who I drew when we got to the group of modern actresses. She's been working for over 30 years, but I still consider that modern. Julie has nearly 40 splats. I'm surprised there was that many, because you think of Moore as always being in good stuff with PTA, Todd Haynes, and all those Oscar-nominated movies she's been in. She's been nominated herself 5 times, and even won for Still Alice about 10 years ago, the one where she has dementia or Alzheimer's, I guess it is Alzheimer's. But the most egregious of all those "it stinks" reviews on the Tomatoes is Fernando Meirelles' Blindness. I had it on my
splat?
I had it on my top 10 list in 2008, and yet its score on Rotten Tomatoes is only 44%. I know it's a tough movie to watch because the subject matter is incredibly bleak, plus it's as subtle as a sucker punch, but it's a galvanizing film about the savagery and selfishness of human nature in times of great stress. Julianne's about as great as she always is, or at least good, maybe not great, but good in that, playing Mark Ruffalo's wife. I think that's literally her character's credit. Doctor's wife.
Yeah,
and he's doctor. They don't even have names.
It's based on a novel that I've read. It's an incredible book, and nobody gets a name.
Ruffalo's pretty good, too. So are Danny Glover, Gail Garcia Bernal, Don McKellar, Alicia Braga, Maury Chaykin. There's a pretty rainbow typecast.
Good Canadian connection. I think the screenplay was Don McKellar, and it was shot up here.
The story is perceptive, and Meirelles showed us, as he did in City of God, just how rough things can get in bad situations. Maybe people were put off because they resist that they would never let their little society go as far off the rails so fast. Okay, it does go off the rails pretty fast in Blindness. And I know Bev and I agreed that our own neighborhood wouldn't go feral on each other, but instead step up to help if there was a zombie apocalypse or an onset of mass blindness. At least for a while we would, unlike these people, which immediately seem to turn on each other. Maybe not our main group, but the Gail Garcia Bernal group. In any case, I wasn't that shocked this wasn't, I don't know, in the 80s necessarily, but 16 points shy of being a fresh rating is just wrong.
All right, my number 1 favorite. I'm going to see if you can guess. I'll give you some hints. Leonardo DiCaprio was my actor.
He has more splats than you might think.
Yeah.
So.
I could have also chosen this movie for Meryl Streep, and it's a movie that I have been defending since the day it came out.
Don't Look Up.
Yay, you got it. Yeah, I've spent the last 4 years passionately defending this film. I know it's about as subtle as a sucker punch, as you say. But isn't that thematically appropriate for the subject matter, which is that no amount of messaging, pleading, educating can get the complacent public to agree to address the civilization-ending crisis that is heading straight for us. I just happen to like Adam McKay's sensibility a little more than most, certainly more than you.
I like his sensibility. I don't like the way he shoots his movies.
okay, I like his style more than you do, although it has nauseated me literally in the past when we saw Big Short in the theater. I legitimately think that this movie is very funny, but mostly I found it so refreshing to see a movie that reflected the screaming that's been going on in my head for literally decades. To see my frustration so passionately portrayed without pulling any punches, particularly through Jennifer Lawrence's character. It was deeply cathartic for me. The unpopularity of this film proves its own point because the audience just doesn't want to be reminded of the reality any more than the characters in the film do. And man, I adore the ending.
It's an emotional ending.
It's the only way it could have ended. I found it profoundly moving, though I could have done without the silly coda at the end with Streep and Rylance. But the ending at the dinner party, if you've seen it, you know what I mean.
One of the more character performances for Leo he's ever had, too. I liked the movie fine. You liked it more than me. It was up for Best Picture, so it wasn't truly hated or anything like that.
But it's a splat.
56%. Yeah, great cast, too. Blanchette's in that. Tyler Perry's in that.
Timothy Chalamet.
Chalamet's in that, yeah.
And Linsky.
Well, I mentioned when you talked about the trivia, I mean the coming attractions trivia, that I was going to get to this a little later on. So before I get to my final actor, and thus my favorite movie out of these 7, I want to spend 30 or 40 seconds saying this. I mentioned that we didn't include Jack Nicholson, right? Well, here's a quick review of Jack's best film, that's a splat. I was surprised that Hoffa was only at 52% good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Danny DeVito made a pretty good biopic, and Jack is absolutely committed to playing James R. Hoffa. Curiously, too, Jack was up for an Oscar the same year he was up for a Razzie, because he was up for A Few Good Men, supporting actor, and then the lead actor, Razzie, for Hoffa. I just saw it again not that long ago on Disney+. It's not incredible, but I do like it. 52%, come on. As for Bruce Willis, I know that Armageddon splatted. I liked the movie, but critics didn't, fine. But I was more surprised to see that The Last Boy Scout was a splat too, only 46% freshness. That's some beep, bleep BS. Last Boy Scout's very good. Somebody posted recently on social media that they think that's his best performance. I don't know if it's his best, but it's an underrated one. He's very good in that movie, playing the loser who ends up being, not surprisingly, a hero. A bit like Die Hard with a Vengeance, actually, because he's the down-and-out drunk loser in that too, come to think of it. Both movies start the same way. So anyway, my 7th and final actor is a man who co-starred with Jack Nicholson in The Bucket List. And I almost chose that as my final film here, because that is a splat. But my second black actor, Morgan Freeman, who's one of the greatest of all time, yet he's been working for so long that he has something like 40 or 50 splats. A lot of them are more recent, movies that no one even really ever saw. But the one I disagree with the most is Kevin Reynolds' Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
That is a crime.
That it is a splat?
Yes.
Yeah. The Tomatoes Gang's combined reviews only have it at 51%, but I've always loved Robin Hood, even that Bryan Adams song.
It was such a huge hit, too.
Sure, Costner's accent sucks like Ford's does. It is the finest ship in the world. K-19, and then in Robin Hood, we all know how bad Costner was with the accent, but he stops doing it pretty early in the movie. I think overall he's a pretty good Robin Hood. He's no Errol Flynn in The Adventures of Robin Hood back in the 30s, but he's not as over-the-top and mannered as Flynn was either when he played Lord Loxley. The lesser-knowns in his merry band, Little John, Christian Slater, no, but the other guys are more authentic than he is because they are English in this English movie. Mostly English, well, Hollywood made, but English mostly starring. But while I like those guys, special kudos have to go out to his lady, and she's not even English, but I think she does a good job playing an English lady, and also his enemy. So Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio as Maid Marian, and Alan Rickman as the Sheriff of Nottingham. And of course, kudos to his best friend Azim, the Morgan Freeman character. It's not the most challenging thing Freeman's ever done, but he's a grounding presence as the outsider amongst all these English. And at the end, when he fulfills his vow to Sarjeet by throwing a giant sword into the guts of the old woman, I always cheered just a little, kill that witch! And here's a big rave for the scene where Little John's wife Fanny has a breech birth, and Azim is the only one who knows how to give her a C-section to save her and the baby. I have seen it done with horses. With horses. There's great teamwork with him. Robin and Marion really steps up too. It's also excellent character building for the three of them, also for Fanny and John and Friar Tuck in that scene. In fact, after the Moor saves the day, there's a payoff with him and Friar Tuck that I find very moving. I love it. It's a great payoff. I saw Robin Hood again just a few weeks ago and I still enjoyed it, but I've watched that breech birth scene on YouTube many times all over the years. I think it's my favorite sequence in what is an action movie. I think it's a great scene.
It's funny, every time I think about that movie, that's one of the first things I think of is the breech birth scene. Now, maybe it's because it's kind of a fantasy, because I think she would have probably died of infection, but you could have saved the baby. Fine, it's a fantasy. It's an interesting
But they all
scene.
come together in that moment. All these people, the Friar didn't, he's black, he's a Moor, but then at the end it's, I was wrong. I apologize. It's really great stuff. Mm-hmm. One last thing. The fanfare music for Morgan Creek Entertainment is Morgan Freeman, but Morgan Creek's the studio name, or the production company, is Michael Kamen's Robin Hood theme. Da 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 da. So that's the music, just like in Warner Brothers they use As Time Goes By because of Casablanca. Well, this movie that people don't even like that much apparently, the music for that production company is from this film. If nothing else, that has a legacy. It's a great score.
And that movie was the hit of the summer, as I recall.
My favorite of all the movies I talked about. Okay, then last thoughts.
My last thoughts are you like what you like, and you don't need to let critics tell you what's good or bad. If you like a movie, then there's no shame in it.
Listicles tend to do better for us, but people might have said, I don't care about Rotten Tomatoes critics or Oscars or stuff like that Ryan obsesses about, so I may not listen to this episode. Okay, fine, but they're going to get some gems if they did listen. We think these are gems, or at least better movies than the critics thought they were. So that was how we saw the best of the splats. 14 movies we actually liked that Rotten Tomatoes critics didn't. And happy Labor Day. Enjoy your laboring, although I'm off and so is Bev. We'll be back in 7 days and we'll return to reviewing a single movie, not a dozen or so of them, I guess 14, well, really more than that as it turned out. And the film in question will be another by David Lynch. He made his name with Eraserhead, but on September 8th, we'll analyze the one that put him on the map in a more mainstream kind of way, if you could ever call David Lynch mainstream, because he wasn't. And it's The Elephant Man. So the coming attractions trivia for The Elephant Man is a little bit like the one for Ridley Scott when we did The Martian. It's going to require some work. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but here we go. I'm going back to one of my favorite topics, the Oscars. Despite David Lynch's fame and acclaim, only 6 of his films were up for any Oscars at all. The Elephant Man was nominated for 8. So was that less than the rest of his movies combined? More than the rest of his movies combined? Or the same number as the rest of his movies with their Oscar nominations combined?
All right, so for the answer to that question, check out next week's episode about The Elephant Man. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to favorite or subscribe. There are hundreds of episodes available for you to check out. If you like us and you'd like to support the podcast, the best way you can do that is by leaving us a rating and a review. You can also support the podcast by going to sparkplug.coffee/HYES for freshly roasted premium coffee that'll be delivered straight to you in Canada or the US. And that HYES will get you a one-time 20% discount. You can also find us on YouTube. Our channel is at HYES Ellis, and we love to hear from you guys. There's a few ways to reach us, starting with Twitter. I'm at Bev Ellis Ellis. Ryan is at MovieFiend51. We're also on Blue Sky. You can find us as Bev Ellis Ellis and Ryan-Ellis, and our email address is haveyoueverseenpodcast@gmail.com.
So here at the end, I'm going to rattle off the names of the people that we didn't choose, but they could have been chosen. Amy Adams, Christian Bale, Angela Bassett, Cate Blanchett, Jeff Bridges, Jim Carrey, Jessica Chastain, Russell Crowe, Matt Damon, Viola Davis, Daniel Day-Lewis, Robert De Niro, Robert Downey Jr., Jane Fonda, Jodie Foster, Tom Hanks, Dustin Hoffman, Anthony Hopkins, Samuel L. Jackson, Scarlett Johansson, Diane Keaton, Nicole Kidman, Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy, Edward Norton, Al Pacino, Sean Penn, Michelle Pfeiffer, Joaquin Phoenix, Brad Pitt, Natalie Portman, Julia Roberts, Kurt Russell, Susan Sarandon, Charlize Theron, and Kate Winslet.
Well, we're just going to have to do another episode someday.
I guess so.
And